Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police, and we are 10-8 in service, which means we're here to safeguard the lives, rights, and the property of the people we serve. And we do that in an effort to make people's lives better. Thanks for joining us here. This is a live show, so if you have a question or comment, go ahead and answer in the chat. I'm going to have a nice video that's going to show a very smart young man in a crosswalk, a busy crosswalk, avoiding a collision. So stay tuned to the end for that. But we'll cover crime, and we'll give you a nice update on that crime that shut down the freeway for a little bit. First, make sure you download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. Make sure you sign up for the Community Warning System. Download the FEMA All Hazards Guide as well, and then visit the PG&E website. That's where you can get all the information about the power shutdowns, but there's also some good preventative information there as well. We're going to move on to the crime, communitycrimemap.com. This is where you can get all things crime. You can set up alerts, have them sent right to you, and you can also get information on the Sexual Offender Registry, or Megan's Law. Collisions, not too bad. This is actually lower than our average. So we had one injury, one property collision. Again, I'm seeing more and more of these rear end collisions, which is telling me that people aren't paying attention, which is telling me that I will continue to direct the officers here to write more and more of those cell phone citations. So please let your friends and neighbors know that that is something that we're seeing that's causing collisions. It's the inattention, and we want to make sure that we help that, because on those rear end collisions, a lot of times we're not seeing any braking ahead of that. So we're getting a full force of whatever the speed limit is into the car in front of them. So on the 13th, there was a rear end collision with an injury on San Ramon Valley Boulevard near Podva Road. And then on the 14th, this was a little unique. We had a solo vehicle into a tree. This is a non-injury, and it was at Sycamore Valley Road in Old Orchard. So those rear end collisions, when we see those, we don't always know it's inattention because we're not sitting in the car with the person. But we can presume if you run into a car and there's no braking that you're not paying attention out the window. And we know that typically what's keeping people's attention is this, maybe a cheeseburger, maybe makeup, maybe something rolling around on the floor. So in general, we're really looking for the inattention because we want to make sure that people do pay attention. That is something that we want to make sure we tamp down. Crime's a little bit of a different story. We're probably a little bit above average for the week. We had one aggravated assault, one burglary, and then several thefts. I'll cover the one on the 12th in a little more detail, but that was the arrest that we had for 2 people for theft and some other charges after they stole from BevMo. On the 14th, we had a theft of alcohol, again from BevMo, on the 100 block of Diablo Road. And then on the 15th, we had property that was stolen, and this is from the purse while the person was shopping inside Trader Joe's. So you can see there's a little bit of a pattern here that people are targeting our commercial areas while the businesses are open. And that could be targeting the business itself for their merchandise, or you for your property. On the 16th, we had a hand dryer. This is really weird, but on the 16th, we had a hand dryer that was stolen from the bathroom wall of the Starbucks on Crow Canyon Road. Really strange one. Don't usually see that kind of thing too often. On the 17th, we had a residential burglary, and there was a kind of an evening hours, I think it was 2 or 3 in the afternoon till late that night. Rear door was smashed, and that was on Castagna Court. On the 18th, we had what appeared to be an organized retail theft of merchandise from a store on 400 block of Hearts. It was a cosmetic store. And then on the 18th, we had an assault with a deadly weapon. This is where someone hit, 2 men got into a fight. One hit the other over the head with a bottle. That makes it an assault with a deadly weapon. And they did that at a bar downtown. We do have some leads. We're working on identifying the suspect. So I do want to talk about some of the arrests that took place. Your police department is always proactively looking for those behaviors that can cause significant harm to people or property. So we're always out proactively looking for it. And then we also are responding to calls, and you'll see an example of that as well. All right. So on the 12th, a woman was booked in the Martinez jail for possession of a stolen vehicle. And this is where our automated license plate camera system alerted officers that the stolen car was coming into town. And so our officers all mobilized, and they were able to find the car on the 3400 block of Camino Tasajera. And they took the person into custody and booked him into the Martinez jail without any issues. On the 12th, we had another man that was issued, or a man this time, that was issued a citation for DUI after found driving his car on Sycamore Valley Road and San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And then on the 14th, this is one that was reported to us. So the first 2 were proactive on our officer's part, and the third one is a crime that we were dispatched to. So there was a business downtown that reported a man was in there threatening another man at the business. We arrived, and ultimately we determined that the crime met the criminal threats definition, so we arrested him for that. And let me look up that one again because I want to make sure we cover that. So criminal threats used to actually be called terrorist threats, which only made it even more confusing because it's meant to terrorize, but it's not a terrorist, so to speak. But let's just cover the elements. I'll do it real quick. If you want a more in-depth dive, you can look at the last show. But the defendant willfully threatened to kill or cause great bodily injury, and then made the threat in some way, either and in this case it was orally, but in writing or electronic device, intended that the statement be considered a threat, and the threat was clear, immediate, unconditional, and the threat actually caused the victim to be in sustained fear, and that the fear was reasonable under the circumstances. So there's quite a few elements that have to be met there. So I know, and the reason I point this out is sometimes we do get the complaint that we take the statement from somebody and then we ask a lot of probing questions. What we're trying to do is we're trying to determine whether or not, we don't have a bias one way or the other. We just want to determine, are there facts one way or another that support a crime? If there's not, there's not. And if there is, there is. But we need to really drill down, because there are, in some of these crimes, like terrorist threats, there are a lot of elements. And so we may have to ask probing questions about, well, how did that make you feel? And did you think it was, that the person realistically could have carried it out, and then, so there can be a lot of small questions that need to be answered in order to determine whether or not there's a crime. Now, the BevMo case, I'm calling it the BevMo case, but the case that occurred at BevMo on the 12th, this is the one where and I'm going to apologize. We should do better than this, and this is completely my fault, but we did send out a couple of nixles that were utterly confusing, and that's my fault. My promise to you is that we will send out those nixles when there is some type of call to action for all of you. So nixle is where you can go on your phone, and if you haven't done it, I'll pull mine up real quick. If you text your area code to 888-777, you can get, and I'll even put our confusing ones up here, you can get an alert when something is happening in town. So 888-777. So if you look, it's just a text message, and at the top you send it to 888-777, and then what you do is in the bottom, you just put you send a message with your area code or zip code. And once you do that, then you'll get a little message that bounces back that says, hey, you've been signed up, and you're signed up. I will send you, or someone from my staff will send you an alert if we shut the road down, if a tree falls in the road and it's going to impact the commute, if we're chasing someone. And so in this particular case, we both had roadways shut down, lots of cops in the area, helicopter overseen, and we had someone that we were trying to catch. So in this case, what ultimately ended up happening was some officers in town were alerted that a suspect vehicle from prior thefts had come into town. So the officers mobilized, and they were looking for the person. And they also knew that one of the people associated with the car, we had already written our own warrant for that person's arrest. And so the person was wanted. So we saw the vehicle. The officers saw the vehicle. They identified the driver as the person that was wanted for a prior theft. And the vehicle, we did try to stop it. The vehicle failed to yield. During that short failure to yield, the vehicle collided with one of our patrol cars, disabling both the patrol car and the suspect vehicle. Ultimately, we were able to get the driver into custody, the passenger in custody, and a few days later, we filed charges with the DA's office, and ultimately it was several retail theft charges, burglary, fleeing from police, assault with a deadly weapon, and vandalism. And so a lot of charges. It's something that we take serious here. Certainly, when they start crashing into cop cars, that's going to get attention. But I don't want you to think that in order for us to do a full investigation or to get charges filed with the DA's office, it takes someone ramming a cop car to get those charges filed. That's not the case. Your police department, the Danville Police Department, if there is solvability to the case, even if it's a very small theft, we're going to try to work to solve it, because we realize that person that maybe stole that one bottle of alcohol from a store, or $10 of merchandise from another store, they could be doing this over and over and over again, and maybe we're just catching them on this one time. And we know if we're trying to prevent the theft from occurring, we want to stay on top of those. So Beth, I'm looking at the questions here. So I don't actually have an answer, but it looks like someone may have an answer for us. Okay, so Beth, as in the case, I'm not sure what exactly was reported on Nextdoor, but I actually got a text message from our lead detective who said that there was no actual report of a crime. There was a report, police did respond, but it was non-criminal in nature. And as it's not criminal in nature, we don't release any information on that. If it's a crime, as you can see, we release the information when it happens, general circumstances and that. But there's a lot of things that we respond to that are not criminal, or they may be of a protected category. That is not the case in this one, but it could be something like a sexual assault where if you were to ask me about the circumstances surrounding it, we don't release it in order to protect the privacy. So as much as we try to be transparent, we try to release a lot of information, we still, by law, have to balance the need to release information to the public versus a person's personal interest in having information be kept private. And in this particular case, it is not a crime, and so there is nothing for the police department to release. All right, great question, Beth, and good job to our detective for reading the question before me and answering via text. So thank you. All right. And then Anita, appreciate the gratitude. Thank you. All right. Looks like that is all the questions we have, but I do want to get to that video. Now, this was actually taken from a viewer's car. So inside the car, trying to see if it's queued up here. Inside the car, there is a video. And what you're going to see is you're going to see the car's driving over the freeway from downtown area, over the freeway on Sycamore Valley Road towards the Rose Garden Shopping Center, towards Camino Ramon, kind of that area. And that's where you're going to pick up. You're going to pick up right as the car is on top of the overpass. And what I want you to look at is you're going to see the lights in front of the car. They're going to be on the yellow light. Then you'll see them turn red. And when it turns red, that's when the signal to walk goes. Now, the way that in our transportation department is doing this, and you're seeing this in other cities as well, but as the lights turn red and we get a green walk arrow, no other lights are green for vehicles for about 5 seconds. And they put them on a pedestrian delay. That way, the pedestrians have time to get out and into the crosswalk before there's a green light for people to go. And the thought is that there will be time for cars to see them. But I want you to watch and see what happens in this case. So here comes the car. Now look at the light. Now it's red. Now you see the person on the corner. They're going across the road and they stop. And that was a car, that white car blew right through the intersection. I'll play it one more time and I want you to take a look at it. So the light is red right now. So it's red, red, red. The pedestrian and the cyclist starts to go. And kudos to the cyclist. Now, here's the question we get is, is the car wrong? Absolutely, the car's wrong. But who gets hurt in that accident? It's the cyclist, right? There may be some dents on the car, but it's the cyclist that's going to get hurt. So we always teach and we preach defensive driving, riding, and walking. I know on my way home, I usually walk or ride, and I that's the intersection I use, and I'm always watching the cars. If the car is not stopped in that lane, I assume that there's a car that's going to come through it. And that's what we try to teach. You have to look in all directions. A few weeks ago, we covered the right hook accident that happened, and you just have to be attentive. It may be someone else's fault, but ultimately, you're going to be the one that gets hurt. So what I would encourage you to do, if you have a young kid or someone that maybe rides their bike to or from school, this is a great video because that kid was absolutely paying attention. He was clearly had to be paying attention because he saw that vehicle run the red light and stopped, which is very, very good. So kudos to the young man in that video. All right, I'm going to look and see if we have any other questions in the chat. I don't see any other questions in the chat, although I do see Dan. Dan asked the question on YouTube. Nixle is the same as Everbridge app, correct? Nixle is the same as Everbridge. Everbridge bought Nixle out, and so it's one app now. So you can go on the website and you can do a lot of detailed configuration to it as far as how you receive alerts and things like that. But if you just want the basic service to get a text message when there's police activity, You can use it straight through the text message. You never even have to go to the website or download the app. It's actually a very, very simple way to sign up. But Dan, you're absolutely right. Nixle is Everbridge. All right. Looks like that's all we have for the day. And we are 10:10, which means we're off duty, but we're always 10:08 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville. Thank you.